What's in the name? Our entire DNA. We are industry innovators, leaders, experts. We thrive on precision and collaboration, all for the greater good of our clients. We take pride in our process, craftsmanship, and most importantly, our people. After all, we're family. It's what makes us more than mold makers. And we understand one truth: the mold is greater than the sum of its parts.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ask the Expert at the Plastics, Caps, and Closures Conference. I'm Joe Pryweller, Conference Director for Plastics News. Our experts today are Brett Lindenmuth, Vice President of Operations, and Camille Sackett, Director of Business Development and Engineering Support for Accede Mold and Tool Company. Brett and Camille will discuss the mold building technology that's available to help you capitalize on cost savings now. They will answer your questions after the presentation. Please send any questions to pnevents@crane.com, or if you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, you can feel free to send questions in through those platforms. With that, I will hand it over to Brett Lindenmuth and Camille Sackett of Accede Mold and Tool. Brett and Camille, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Joe. It's wonderful to see you. And it's a little bit disappointing that we're not able to connect in person in Chicago as we normally would. But we're very grateful for the opportunity and for the hard work of Plastics News to pivot and to be able to offer this virtual platform so that we could connect with you. And we've got Brett. Just a little bit of background. I am Camille Sackett, and I've worked for Accede Mold and Tool since 1993, and I also have here Brett Lindenmuth. Some of the roles that I've had at Accede have, both Brett and I have started out as tool designers and have had a variety of different roles and responsibilities. I've been heavily involved in process development. I also took on the role of second shift engineering manager, and Brett could speak a little bit to his path. He started out in engineering and then transitioned into managing the manufacturing department.
Certainly, I've been at Accede for over 20 years now. Started, as Camille said, as a detailer doing injection mold design and drafting. Worked my way through our manufacturing department and doing manufacturing approaches and designing all our electrodes and fixtures and learning all of our manufacturing processes throughout Accede. And then, moved on to overall operations. So again, a quick 20 years at Accede. It
does go quick in the mold building industry. Some background, we're going to be presenting today on, encouraging and having this call to action for brand owners, contract manufacturers to partner with their mold builders to leverage technology, because the industry has changed dramatically from the time that Brett and I both started in the 90s to where we are today. Accede, we were founded by Al Fox in 1981, and his background, he was the toolroom supervisor for Thermo Fisher here in Rochester, New York, which at the time was, I believe, Nalgene Nunk. And again, Rochester, for context, we are on Lake Ontario, so we're opposite Toronto, and we're about 4 hours, northwest of New York City. We have 68 employees. And the company in-house, we have focused and worked to just provide tooling solutions and mold building. So we're not a molder. We've dedicated ourselves, again, with our region and where we are and what we do is heavily involved in manufacturing and that history. We're also not far from Cornell University. We have Rochester Institute of Technology close by, University of Rochester. So we have that blending of the academics and also the practical experience and manufacturing experience here in the region. In-house, Accede, we offer engineering, manufacturing, mold sampling from 80 to 720 tons. And then our customers are here in North America, but our customers are running production globally. So it's normal for us to be dispatching mold makers to Europe or to Asia, throughout the world to do installations. And Brett's actually on a call doing an installation right now. And also servicing and doing the maintenance programs for those injection molds. The constant challenge or theme of, our customers are reaching out to us with problems, and they're all being, regardless of the industry that they're in. And, we do about $18.5 million worth of mold builds a year. We're servicing the medical sector, the consumer packaging sector, and then a mixed bag of automotive and industrial. Regardless of the industry that our customers are in, they're all being tasked to lower their costs, shorten their lead times, shorten and secure their supply chains, increase throughput, improve quality, and reduce waste. So with that, you can partner with your mold builder, and you can leverage technology to lower those costs.
Yeah, we'd really like to talk a little bit today about collaboration with your mold builder as early as possible to help develop smarter molds and more efficient cells. The earlier a mold maker becomes involved, the more they can, again, use what's in their toolbox to help your molding solution, and whatever your goals are, whether it's cost savings, quality improvement, usually both. The mold maker can use those tools, and some of those are software simulations that you're familiar with, but newer technologies with conformal cooling. Again, there are great applications, but a lot of it there's a lot of upfront work that needs to be done to implement those. But in-process inspection equipment, in-mold labeling, automation, anything that can be done in and around that mold to make your cell more efficient, improve your quality, as well as monitoring in molds like sensors and servo controls. A big addition over the last handful of years is servo controlled actions in molds. Improve your quality and your control of those actions in the mold, give you digital feedback to know if things are wearing, if forces are increasing, gives you a lot more information. So these are all things that can help that overall cell and system, and a mold maker can implement and help with those solutions. One of the others that we're doing for cost savings for our customers in lieu of our current pandemic, it's really helped us increase our remote mold validation. So now we'll talk a little more about it later, but being able to allow a customer to view mold samples and basically be part of a mold sample remotely without the travel, the cost of travel, making it easier for the customer, but still well engaged into that mold qualification. A few of them sounds very basic, but some of those things that will increase your throughput, generate higher quality, less scrap and downtime, very, very basic as high cavitation and multi-parting line stack molds. As technologies have increased, both, machining capabilities and accuracy, machine size capabilities and repeatability, allows us to take, those 4-cavity, 8-cavity molds into higher cavitation and still get the dimensional repeatability and quality that you're looking for in your parts. We at Accede have been doing 2-shot multi-material mold builds for well over 20 years. But now with new technologies like cube molds and spin stacks, allows you to take those multi-material applications also to higher cavitations without enormous presses and huge floor space and capital investment. And then I hit on, in mold actions and servo control. Large hydraulic cylinders, immense pressures, and very little feedback can promote a lot of damage and wear and downtime in a mold, where with the new servo controls, you get direct feedback. You can set thresholds and limits and really dial in any maintenance, increased safeties, less damage in your mold, which again, it helps with that overall mold cost, the downtime, scrap waste, everything that's going to improve your overall cell. Being engaged early is important. Again, there's a very basic two-shot part here, but you can see on the right, 3 different molding solutions, an in-mold rotary solution, a rotary stack mold solution, and then a conventional rotary solution. Each one of these applications can be catered to a customer's program or their project, whether it's press limitations, whether it's cycle time goals, or automation and part exposure. Again, the earlier a mold maker is involved, they can help dial in the specific application and tooling solution for a certain given application, because that part can be molded in multiple different ways depending on the goal of the cell. You're muted.
About that. Talking to some real world examples and our experience at Accede, we had a customer who approached us. They were using a sort of what today would be considered an antiquated process for producing parts that was labor intensive. They had a 2-shot part, which, 2 material for anyone that's not familiar with injection molding or injection mold building. So they would take the time they had a mold to produce the substrate part, and then they would manually transfer that substrate part from the first mold into their book mold for overmolding. And some of the challenges with that, again, as you can imagine, with having an operator place that part, there were quality concerns, and that customer was struggling to meet demand. They had orders that they were struggling to fill. So the action that the customer took for 2 different parts is that they invested the time and the money and the resources to set up 2 new cells for 2-shot molds. The first was an A+8 rotary that was placed in an Arborg, and the second was also placed in an Arborg, but it was a lift and rotate configuration. And in the end, the result for that customer is that they were able to not only meet the demand that was for those parts, but they were also able to have additional space so that their sales and operations were able to go out and get additional orders to fill. And then a more recent case study that we'll look at is for a company that we're doing business for, Metro Mold and Design. So Metro is a U.S. Manufacturer. They have 2 plants in the Minnesota area, and they specialize in high volume, low mix, thermoplastic and thermoset injection molding and blow molding. So how do you have an American company competing with low-cost molders globally? And the action that they take, they rely on their service and their experience, but further, they partner with key suppliers to provide their customers reduced annual spends and yielding superior performance. They upfront engineered ways to capture those savings year over year. Specifically for this instance, it was a closure, a lid, and technologies that they deployed. They're using a stack mold to have maximum throughput. They're using an IML system. They're using vision systems. And so with that, the result in the end is that with the automation for the packaging and the end of process, their labor was almost completely eliminated from the cell. And with the technology leverage, Metro Mold was able to provide an 11% savings compared to their competition, who had very similar capital costs. And a quote from their team, they say, "We are continuously investing in the advanced manufacturing technologies needed to produce efficient molding solutions for our customers. This is not only important in meeting accelerated demand, but it will also be important as companies seek American-made products at price points not historically available in the United States." And that's from Ben Lamprin, the Vice President of Metro Mold and Design's Consumer and Industrial Division. So again, the call to action is for brand owners and for contract manufacturers is to partner with your mold makers and bring them in early, as Brett said, and explain to them the system and what you're trying to achieve and your goals so that you can capitalize on those cost savings. Rely on your mold makers and leverage that relationship to produce, calling them for turnkey systems integration. So all of the auxiliaries that are going around your mold, use your mold makers. The mold is there, that floor space, work with them for process development and validation, or choose a mold maker that has experience and a team that has the competencies to be able to assist you with that process. And then also, like for Accede, as Brett mentioned, the most recent value add that we're offering is the remote validation. And that was born out of necessity because of the situation that we're all living in with travel bans and restrictions that companies have, to keep their employees safe. That's what it was born out of. But in reality, this is a service that our customers need, that they've needed for a long time. A quote from our owner, Roger Fox: "The goal of the Accede's virtual sample is to provide customers a superior experience, bringing more value than traditional in-person mold qualifications. Today's customers are spread way too thin, and I'm sure many of you can relate, to spend days on site qualifying a mold that could be performed virtually. And our job is to make that experience seamless, detailed, and effective." Again, everyone is trying to do more with less, and by having a mold maker, partnering with your mold maker to be able to do these virtual qualifications, you have the ability to see your mold run, to look at the process that they're doing and test the limits of that process, look at the inspection data in real time and your parts in real time, do a mold teardown in real time and be there without actually having to take the time to leave your normal day-to-day and get on a plane and spend all that time at your mold maker's facility. So it's much more efficient, it's much more focused, and it frees up your time to do your other work responsibilities and also to balance that maintain that family work balance. So again, partner and rely on your mold maker to make your life easier and capitalize on those savings. So with that, again, I'm just in summary, partner with your mold maker to leverage technology for efficiency gains and cost savings. You'll save in the end. At Accede, we say the mold is greater than the sum of its parts. And with that, we'll turn it over to Joe, whether, to hear if anybody has any questions or comments.
Great. I appreciate the presentation and the call to action, especially hopefully mobilize the industry to work sooner and collaborate with mold makers out there. We have time for questions, and you can send your questions as you see at the scroll at the bottom of your screen to pnevents@crane.com. Or if you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, you can also use those platforms to send in your questions. First question I have for you, just going into the Wayback Machine a little bit, how and why have injection molds evolved over the last 20 or 30 years, and why does that really matter?
Well, that's being in the industry over 20 years, and I know there's people way more experienced than myself, but again, my first job actually it was a summer college job, was working as a machine operator, picking sprues out of every mold, trimming gates, trimming parts, boxing parts. And again, I'm at a customer facility today, and one operator is managing 15 cells. Every mold is direct gated. There are no cold runners. Every part is picked with automation instead of operators. They're boxed, they're stacked, they're bagged. And it's just amazing the technology gains. And it's across the board. It's from the machines and the machine capabilities to what can be done in molds and the level of accuracy of mold and mold machining now. And then again, the utilization of automation. One of the challenges, we have a lot of technical people here in the United States, but labor is also costly. So utilizing high-tech people and high-tech automation helps with that cost competitiveness.
And across the board, it's been not just material science and the materials that are available and conformal cooling. You look at companies like HTS, what they're able to achieve. Across the board. And then also Brett could speak to the level of control that we have with servos, as opposed to just hydraulics when we were first starting in the industry with a push pull. Now you can profile and have all of that data to make decisions and smarter decisions for maintenance, and then also just for taking care of your mold and the longevity of that mold.
Great. Here's a question that came in via email, maybe similar to what you're talking about with how things have changed. How is research and development organized and driven within Accede?
Well, for a relatively small mold builder, again, Camille said 68 employees, we have a very large engineering staff. My engineering manager, Adam Filippetti, has a team of 6-7 full-time design engineers, as well as our manufacturing engineers, CAM programmers. And I think one of the things that Accede was founded on is that challenge. The founder, Al Fox, and his son, Roger, love a challenge and are willing to put every effort into achieving goals. So we tend not to do simple molds. We never have. They tend to be challenging, complicated, lift, rotate, multiple actions. So, we have a very diverse engineering team, very highly skilled, and it starts from the top down, the president, as well as myself, always looking for new challenges, research, development. You'll see actually, in our own booth, we've built servo displays and just integrated servos into our own applications for testing and research and development, which helps within mold servo development. That was shown at our booth in NPE 2 years ago, and was actually at the K show prior. So constantly looking for new technologies, and if we need to build and test ourselves, we will do it internally as well.
Absolutely, and it's funny with the trends that are showcased at Caps and Closures. We've taken that and used that as catalyst for some of our R&D events or R&D investment projects. So whether it's a pull tab, and that's also the benefit that we see in being independently owned by. That the company can make a decision without having, multiple layers of bureaucracy, that if we see that the industry is going in a certain direction, we have the resources and the support from management to be able to make those investments and build those unit molds or those test molds or the servo displays like Brett mentioned.
Great. Here's a question. I know you guys talked about some newer types of molds like cube molds and spin stacks and some of that. The question is, can you expand a little bit on what you mean by new technology related to cube molds or any of those?
Well, certainly. Again, cube mold being a very, I don't want to say generic term, but again, a rotary axis, non-traditional. You've seen them at multiple trade shows, large cube, small cube systems, usually used in a multi-material application, but can also be used for multiple parts and family molding. I think the biggest, people do see them at trade shows, but quite often don't really know all the different options and things that can be done. As I mentioned, it can be a 2-shot cube mold. It can be a single shot cube mold. It can be a family cube mold. And then along with that, the cube and a mold is a precision fixture. And when you put it in a cube platform, that those parts are exposed to the operator or the non-operator side of the machine. And when those parts are exposed, any robot action can be taken, whether it's, you just need to continue to expand your mind. You can clip on other parts. You could, hot stamp, spray paint, UV cure, anything that can be done on the end of arm robot. You have your 4 parts, 8 parts, 64 parts, precisely fixtured. And if that robot can enter the machine envelope, you can do multiple operations while your other platens are molding parts. So again, I think cube itself has been around. It's slowly growing in North America. It definitely started in Europe, but it's growing in North America. And I think North American molders and OEMs need to continue just expanding their knowledge and the ability of what can be done on a cube system. Which
pushing boundaries, absolutely.
Well, we're running out of time a little bit, but I want to get to at least 1 or 2 more questions if we can. You mentioned that you work on a global scale in a lot of cases with customers, Europe, Asia, and elsewhere. How do you ensure that aftermarket service is done on a global scale? What's your reaction time, for instance, if a mold breaks down in Asia? How can you respond to something overseas?
We're very fortunate, again, with being so close to Toronto and being so close to New York City, that we're able to dispatch mold makers quickly and efficiently. We do have a partner that we work with in Europe, Kibo, and they are a Swiss mold maker. So they're able to be there if needed to triage or stage a mold. But again, because geographically of where we're placed, we're fortunate that we've been able to dispatch mold makers as needed. And even throughout the pandemic and New York's very strict rules for quarantine, as if someone has to get over and do a PM for a mold, that they go and do that and follow guidelines for quarantine. Brett, do you have more to add to that? Because this is something.
No, again, we do send our mold makers out on service, so it does tend to be the mold maker that worked on building the mold originally. We have had mold makers, depending on circumstances, leave Rochester and be in Germany in less than 24 hours. So, we react and we do everything we can to support our customers as needed.
Great. Last question. How does Accede typically use injection mold process simulations? Is there a way you're working more closely with customers on some of that too?
Yeah. Again, we partner and work very closely with multiple simulation, both internally, but also specialists such as Beaumont Technologies. Again, they're at the forefront of mold flow and material development and simulation. So, we also partner with those experts to aid in our simulation, both from mold flow to cooling, shrinkage, a warp analysis, and again, working with HTS, Contour, and multiple conformal cooling companies to tie the two together, meaning, both mold flow analysis as well as additional cooling analysis from the conformal cooling companies.
Last question I have here, maybe you can answer. I don't know if how succinctly you can answer this one, but I'll ask it anyway. How can you make sure you offer brand owners the most cost-effective manufacturing solution when you're dealing with technology and some of that? Are there ways that you could help ensure that something is most cost-effective way to launch a new product, I guess, anyway, in some cases with brand owners?
It's a partnership and a collaboration. Absolutely. Brett, I'll let you answer that because you're.
Yeah, I agree. It's a partnership and a collaboration. I don't know how it was phrased, guarantee it's the best solution. We can't, but again, I think one of the things we're expressing, not just for us, this is for all mold makers. It's seen as just a small piece of the puzzle. And, a lot of times you'll get that RFQ. Hey, we need an 8 cavity mold, or we need a 24 cavity mold. And, it may come from an OEM, it may come from a contract manufacturer. And the mold maker doesn't always know the full goal of that cell, and may have other ideas that could be incorporated to improve it. So again, the closer those OEMs and those contract manufacturers, the closer their relationship is with the mold maker, the more we can help improve and again, hopefully ensure that they are getting the best solution for their end goal.
Great. Well, at this point, I think I'll ask you if you have any final comments that you want to make today, Brett and Camille. Any parting words you want to leave the audience with for your call to action?
I think Brett nailed it. Again, it's relying on your mold maker and having that partnership and that collaboration, not just pushing off an RFP or an RFQ and asking them to, give you pricing for an 8 cavity mold or a 32 cavity mold or a 128 cavity mold, but bringing your supply chain in and working with them and relying on them for their expertise and their experience so that you are capitalizing on their knowledge and their practical experience and leveraging mold technology to lower your overall costs and have those efficiency gains. Great.
Anything you want to add, Brett?
No comments other than thank you for the time today. We really enjoyed it. And any further questions, you can reach out to us at info@accedemold.com.
Terrific. Well, again, I want to thank you for a terrific presentation and the audience for all the great questions and for listening in today. And hopefully we all heed the call to action that you provided to work closely with your mold builders. If you have additional questions, as Brett said, you can reach out to Brett and Camille at info@accedemold.com. And stay tuned for more great presentations this week. Our next presentation starts at 2 p.m. Eastern Time today and features experts from RTI and Harbor Results talking about materials and economic forecasts that relate to closures and packaging. And we have a full day of session in store tomorrow too, kicking off with a discussion on the future of tethered closures at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, to be followed at noon Eastern by another Ask the Expert session, this one with Chroma Color. So be sure to join us tomorrow for these and other sessions, and on Friday too, as we move into another day of great conversation here at the conference. I also want to mention too that if you're interested in our matchmaking opportunities, it's not too late for that too. You can get involved by connecting on our virtual event site to schedule meetings and connect with more than 700 attendees at this conference. I'll look forward to seeing you at a future session. Have a great day.
What's in the name? Our entire DNA. We are industry innovators, leaders, experts. We thrive on precision and collaboration, all for the greater good of our clients. We take pride in our process, craftsmanship, and most importantly, our people. After all, we're family. It's what makes us more than mold makers. And we understand one truth: the mold is greater than the sum of its parts.